Do you hear it? The sound. The chains. They do not clatter like iron. They drag like continents being split open, like bones snapping in the marrow of reality itself. Every link is a sentence, every rattle a curse. That was the first thing I noticed, before the smell of blood reached me, before the light began to boil the void. The chains. I was there when the first crack split reality. I remember how the stars screamed. Yes, screamed. Their voices rang across the Imperium, a shrill note so high and sharp that it lacerated the flesh inside my ears. I clawed at my skull until my nails came away red. But the sound kept going. And then, the silence. It was heavier than gravity. It pressed down on the fleet around me, smothering the hymns of the ship's choir. Vox units sputtered into static. The Astronomicon itself flickered, like a candle drowning in its own wax. And into that silence, he stepped. Kratos. Not a name whispered in worship. Not a god invoked in prayer. He was an intruder, a scar, a memory carved from another cosmos and nailed into ours. He walked barefoot across the void, and every step broke another law of reality. Do you know what it feels like to see a man who should not exist? It is nausea made flesh. It is madness with a heartbeat. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not ozone, not promethium, not the bitter incense of Mechanicus engines. No, burning blood. The copper sting of it, thick as smoke, pouring into every breath. I gagged on it. So did the others. We were choking before he even looked at us. And when he did, oh, throne forgive me. His eyes were not eyes. They were pits of violence, bottomless, blind to anything but the next act of ruin. They saw me and they did not care. That was worse than hatred. Hatred is personal. Indifference is annihilation. He carried no banner, no heraldry, no purpose but destruction. Yet the galaxy bent beneath his weight. When his blades sang, no, not sang. They shrieked. Like tortured steel, like children flayed alive. Those chain blades tore through the first battle barge before I could even cry warning. Metal groaned, ceramite melted, and thousands of souls screamed out in one united note of despair as their lives were crushed in silence. And that was just the beginning. The Imperium rippled. I felt it in my teeth. Demons twisted and howled in sudden panic, retreating like vermin from a light they could not endure. The Chaos Gods turned their faces away. For the first time, they recoiled, not from faith, not from the Emperor, but from him. Kratos, the Godslayer, the invader. He should not be here. But he was. And I am the one who remembers. I am the one left breathing, though I do not know why. Perhaps to tell you. Perhaps to curse you with the truth. Perhaps to drag you down with me into this memory that is no memory at all, but a wound still bleeding in my skull. Do you want me to tell you what it was like? No, you don't. But you will listen, because now that you've heard the chains, you cannot unhear them. They are in you already. This was not a battle. This was not a war. This was a killing ground where gods themselves became prey. The first to fall was Khorne's chosen, a demon prince swollen with centuries of rage, armored in brass and bone. He came bellowing, rivers of fire trailing his steps. His voice cracked the void, promising blood, skulls, eternity. Kratos met him in silence. One chain. One swing. The demon's head parted from its body like rotten fruit. There was no roar of triumph, no cry of victory. Only a grunt, a dismissal, as though swatting a fly. And with that motion, I knew. The galaxy was not prepared. It was not simply that Kratos could kill gods. It was that he had done it before, and would do it again, until nothing divine remained. The warp shrieked. I shrieked with it. Daily life and the horror, the warp-shifted routine, how long has it been since he arrived? Days. Years. Centuries. Time doesn't work anymore. It bends around him like heat over a forge. I count not in hours, but in screams. In silences. In the rhythm of chains dragging through my sleep. Every morning, if it can be called morning, I wake to the same taste in my mouth. Rust, iron, the flavor of blood long dried, and yet still fresh. My tongue is cut, my gums swollen, as though I've been chewing glass. I spit into my palm, and the phlegm glitters with flecks of crimson. It is always there. The blood. in the air, in the water, in me. We try to live, those of us who remain. We pretend routines matter. Guardsmen polish lost guns that will never fire again. Tech priests chant to machine spirits that have already fled, their voices breaking as their prayers echo into absence. Sisters of battle kneel in chapels gutted by silence, whispering litanies that even they no longer believe. I watch them. I watch myself. We are all insects, mimicking rituals in the carcass of a hive already burning. Once, I believed in order. In command chains. In the calendar of duty. Now the only chain is his. Kratos moves through the galaxy not like an invader, but like an executioner fulfilling a sentence no one remembers passing. He does not conquer. He does not occupy. He destroys. And then he moves on. Do you know what it's like to survive his passing? It is not relief. It is not mercy. It is worse. He leaves wounds behind, wounds that never close. Planets split in half, but the people still crawl among the rubble, breathing ash, begging for a god who cannot hear them. Space hulks drift with populations still alive inside, their voices leaking through the void as whispers of starvation. I hear them. All of them. Everywhere. When Kratos severed the first Primarch, the galaxy cracked like porcelain. I felt it, all of us did. A hole opened in the skein of time, and now days repeat themselves like broken hymns. I have lived this morning before. I will live it again. Each time, slightly worse. The first cycle, the sun rose red. The second, it rose black. Now it rises screaming. A howl of fire and agony bleeding across the sky. And we accept it. That is the worst part. The mind breaks, then bends. I bow my head at the sound. I cross myself with hands still trembling. It is normal. It is routine. My neighbors stitch their wounds with rusted wire. Children play with skulls as though they were toys. Mothers boil bones into broth. Men dream of chains and wake clutching their throats. This is life now. The Imperium does not speak his name. The Administratum scratches it from every record, as though denial can erase the truth. They call him only the intruder, the scar, the silence walker. But we know. We whisper his name in the dark, not as prayer, but as curse. Kratos. I see him in my sleep. Always at a distance, always walking away, dragging those blades behind him. The sparks they strike against the ground are suns, igniting new systems only to burn them out again in seconds. I want to wake, but waking is no escape. The dream is truer than reality now. Some have begun to worship him. Yes, they carve chains into their flesh. They paint their eyes white with ash, trying to mimic his blind fury. They call themselves his disciples. He does not look at them. He does not speak to them. He cuts them down as swiftly as the rest. And yet more rise in their place, convinced his indifference is proof of his divinity. The galaxy twists its neck willingly into the noose. I used to ask why. Why us? Why here? Why now? But there is no answer. Kratos is not reason. He is not destiny. He is not even vengeance. He is simply will. The will to destroy until nothing remains. And so we live in patterns of survival. We scavenge ruins. We drink smoke. We bury children in mass graves, not out of respect, but because their bodies draw flies that now have teeth. Every day the chains return. Every day I hear them, closer, then farther, then closer again, as though time itself swings like a pendulum around his steps. I am tired of living. But I cannot die. I have tried. Believe me. A lost pistol under the chin, click, nothing. A jump into the void, yet I woke, choking, back on the ground. I swallowed poison until my belly turned to fire, yet I vomited it out as water. Kratos does not allow death. He hoards it. Every life he does not take is a debt left hanging in the air, waiting for him to collect. So I wander. So I write. So I speak to you, though you are not here, though you should not listen. The routines of horror have replaced the routines of life. Once we woke to reveille, ate ration packs, polished boots, kissed loved ones. Now we wake to the stench of burning organs, gnaw marrow from corpses, polish rust from broken knives, and kiss the dirt as though it were the Emperor's hand. And when the chains sound again, when they drag through the silence of space like thunder through marrow, we kneel. not out of worship, not out of defiance, but because standing feels meaningless in the shadow of the man who unmakes meaning itself. This is daily life. This is all we have left, and it is only getting worse. It began with a slaughter so vast, so sudden, that the void itself bent under the weight of the screams. You've heard of the Primarchs, warriors carved from the Emperor's own marrow. Half gods, half men, more myth than flesh. Each of them could tear cities apart with their bare hands. And yet, they fell like cattle in an abattoir. The first was Angron. Yes, Khorne's chosen, the bloody-handed madman, the butcher of Nysiria. He came roaring, his chain axes screaming louder than the warp. He did not come alone. A host of demons surged with him, a tide of brass and bone. Kratos did not roar back. He did not posture. He only lifted his hand. The chain blade snapped forward, a serpent of fire and steel. It hooked Angron by the throat. The demon Primarch's roar turned into a gurgle, a choking gasp that echoed across the stars. Kratos dragged him down through the void, and struck him once. Just once. And Angron was no more. Do you understand what that means? A demon Primarch, slain like vermin, without struggle, without glory. The warp howled. I felt it shake my bones. The Chaos Legions faltered, their faith curdling in their bellies. But worse was what followed. Angron's corpse did not fall. It did not drift. It split open. From his hollow chest spilled rivers of blood, endless, unceasing, pouring through space like an ocean set free. It drowned entire fleets, flooded planets, boiled stars. Every world touched by that crimson tide became uninhabitable. Not destroyed, consumed. Oceans turned to blood. Air to choking iron. Children were born screaming, their veins bursting before their eyes could open. I was on one of those worlds. I tasted it. I drowned in it. I clawed my way out of a sea that had no bottom, coughing scarlet froth from my lungs, only to realize I was still alive, still cursed to breathe. That was only one pre-march. Only the beginning. Fulgrim came next, radiant with Slaanish's corruption, his blade singing songs no mortal should hear. His beauty was unbearable, his laughter a poison. Kratos split him from shoulder to hip, and his voice became a shriek that lasted a year in the warp, driving thousands mad. To this day I hear it, a high, keening wail woven into the silence behind my thoughts. Magnus the Red, sorcerer, son of Tsench. He came cloaked in storms of knowledge, spells carved in languages older than time. His staff glowed with power enough to unmake reality itself. Kratos caught it mid-swing, snapped it like a twig, and then broke Magnus' spine across his knee. The Cyclopean giant wept as he died. His tears fell not as water, but as burning embers, raining down on thousands of worlds. Those embers still smolder, still burn, consuming libraries, cathedrals, whole civilizations. Knowledge itself ignites when touched. Do you see? Every death is not an ending. It is a new horror. The galaxy bleeds not because he kills, but because what he kills refuses to stay dead. The corpses of gods are not corpses at all. They are plagues. They are curses. They are wounds in the skein of time that will never heal. When Mordorion fell, his lungs burst into clouds of rot that swept across 100 sectors. Planets that had been fertile became swamps of pestilence. Children born under those skies came out stillborn, their flesh already rotting. When Perturabo was shattered, his bones fell as iron meteors, crushing moons, embedding themselves in crusts of planets, each fragment a fortress of pain that screams forever. When Lorgar prayed for salvation, Kratos tore his tongue out. That tongue still writhes, still chants, seeding entire systems with whispers that drive populations to slaughter themselves in ecstasy. And when Gilliman, yes, even Gilliman, tried to stand, tried to reason, tried to understand, Kratos did not hesitate. The blade went through him like parchment. The hope of the Imperium died in a single heartbeat. I watched the Ultramarines break. They did not fight. They wept. And in their weeping, I wept too. Because I knew then, there would be no savior, no resistance, no order restored. Only him. Only Kratos. But worse was coming still. For the chaos gods themselves began to stir. They had ignored him at first, perhaps thinking him a curiosity, a mistake. But when their champions fell, when their demons crumbled, they turned their gaze upon him. And they were afraid. Khorne bellowed across the stars, demanding blood. Kratos gave him silence, and in that silence Khorne's throne cracked. Tzeentch twisted 1,000 futures to trap him. Kratos cut them all, one by one, until even the future was bleeding. Nurgle opened his garden, swelling it with pestilence. Kratos burned it with his fury, and the stench of charred rot spread across realities. Slaanesh sang, sweet and terrible, a melody woven from desire itself. Kratos answered with a scream, not of rage, not of triumph, but of grief. The scream of a man who had lost everything long before we were born. And Slaanesh's voice broke. The god of excess fell silent, strangled by sorrow it could not consume. Do you understand what that means? The gods themselves, silenced. Not destroyed, not banished, but made irrelevant. And yet, every wound he carved into them spilled into us. Khorne's broken throne bled rivers of rage into mortals. Whole worlds tore themselves apart in frenzy. Tzeentch's severed futures collapsed into paradoxes. Ships arrived before they departed. Soldiers killed their fathers before they were born. Nurgle's ashes poisoned time itself. A man could die of plague decades before he was infected. And the silence of Slaanesh drove entire civilizations mad, begging for a voice that would never come. This is escalation. This is the unraveling. And still Kratos walked. Step by step. World by world. Chains dragging. Blades shrieking. A rhythm older than the stars, older than gods, older than truth itself. I began to wonder then, who is left for him to kill? If gods die, if Primarchs break, if chaos falters, what remains? Only one. The Emperor on his throne. And I knew, as all survivors knew, as all the galaxy whispered in dread, that this was where it must end. The Godslayer against the corpse god. The chain against the throne. The silence against the hymn. And if he wins, if he truly wins, there will be nothing left to worship. Nothing left to fear. Nothing left at all. Reflection, temptation, the whispering void, I do not trust my memories anymore. What I tell you may already be a lie, even as I swear it is truth. Perhaps I am lying without knowing. Perhaps the words are not mine at all, but his, sliding into my mouth like chains through flesh. I remember, or I think I remember, the first time I saw Terra after his passing. The sky was no longer sky. It was bone. A dome of fused skulls, screaming without mouths, their eye sockets glowing like dying suns. The ground burned, yet no fire warmed it. The air was thick with prayers that had been cut into pieces, syllables severed mid-breath. But then, when I blinked, it was gone. I stood in a ruined street, the smell of charred parchment around me, a sky black with smoke. No skulls. No dome. No fire. Which is true? Both. Neither. My mind is no longer mine. At night I hear whispers. Not chaos, not demons, not psychers. Something deeper. A voice without a mouth, a thought without a body. It says, join him. It says, he is not your enemy. He is the only truth left. It says, if you surrender, you will no longer fear. You will no longer doubt. You will be chain, you will be blade, you will be fury itself. And part of me believes. I think of the weight of living in this horror, the exhaustion of fear. Would it not be simpler to let go? To abandon hope, abandon faith, abandon the endless struggle of survival, and become part of him? I imagine it. His hand, rough, scarred, reaching down, lifting me by the throat, snapping me like a twig. But instead of death, I would dissolve into his veins, carried in the tide of his fury, no longer a man, no longer afraid. There is temptation in annihilation. There is peace in becoming nothing. The others feel it too. I see it in their eyes. There was a priest among us, one who had once led sermons of the Emperor's glory. I found him in the ruins of a chapel, the altar shattered, candles drowned in wax. He was on his knees, not in prayer, but in ecstasy. He was carving chains into his flesh with a shard of glass, whispering, I see him, I see him, I see him. I tried to stop him. He looked up at me. His eyes were not his eyes. They were pits of violence, just like Kratos's. He smiled, and then he pulled the glass across his throat. But he did not die. He laughed as the blood poured, laughed as it sprayed the walls, laughed as though drowning was joy. When I ran, I swear I heard chains dragging behind me. Tell me, am I still human? Because sometimes when I touch my skin, I feel it burning. The white ash of his markings spreads across my chest, across my arms. I wash, I scrape, I bleed, and still the ash returns, tracing lines I do not understand. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see not through my own, but through his. I see the galaxy not as stars, but as targets. I see gods not as divine, but as prey. Is this memory? Or is it infection? What if he is not real at all? What if Kratos is not a man who crossed into our galaxy, but a name, a shape, given to the violence we already carried? Think of it. Our history, our endless wars, our blood-soaked empires. Maybe he is nothing but the echo of our hatred, given flesh because we wanted it so. Maybe I am him. Maybe you are. Maybe everyone who whispers his name becomes a link in the chain, until the whole galaxy is bound to his will. Do you see the temptation? To stop struggling. To stop questioning. To surrender and let the chain tighten. Let it drag me into silence. Let the blade fall. I have dreamed of it. Oh, throne, I have dreamed of it. In the dream, I stand before him. His skin is white ash, his muscles corded with fury, his eyes bottomless. I kneel. I offer my throat. The blade descends. And I wake, not dead, but lighter, as if each dream kills a part of me. Perhaps that is the truth. I am dying piece by piece, not by blood, but by surrender. And when nothing remains but the dream, I will be gone. And maybe that is mercy. I speak these words to you now, but I wonder if you hear my voice, or if you only hear his echo. Perhaps I am already gone, and these are not confessions, but chains, binding you as they bind me. Do you feel it? The weight in your chest? The cold around your throat? That is him. He is reaching, even through words, even through memory. I am afraid. I am tempted. I do not know which is worse. Climax and closing inevitable. That is the word that haunts me. Every step he took, every Primarch slain, every god silenced, it was all walking toward one place. One moment. One throne. Terra. I was there. Or I dreamed I was. Or perhaps the galaxy itself made me witness. My feet carried me without choice, drawn like a moth to a pyre that would burn the universe. The sky above holy Terra split. Not with storm, not with warp, but with chains. They fell from the void like comets, burying themselves into mountains, oceans, cathedrals. The ground shook as though the planet itself was being shackled. The walls of the Imperial palace did not stand. They bent, groaned, shattered, falling into dust before his shadow. Statues of saints wept blood. Spires bent like wax under flame. The air was filled with the stench of burning prayer books, millions of them igniting at once, as if the emperor's name had been outlawed from existence itself. And then, the throne. I saw it. The golden throne, blazing with dying light, rivers of cables running like veins, psychers shrieking as their souls were drained to keep the Astronomicon alive. At its center, the emperor, corpse and god, rotting and radiant, his face both bone and flame. Kratos walked forward. No army stopped him. They tried. Emperor's children, Imperial guard, custodes, all thrown aside like toys in a slaughterhouse. Blood sprayed the steps and rivers. The chains dragged behind him, clattering like laughter in a cathedral of silence. And then, he stood before him. The corpse god. The father of mankind. The only being left who might defy him. The emperor's eyes opened. Two suns, golden and endless, burning with the agony of 10,000 years. His mouth moved, and I swear I heard it, a single word. Why? Not a challenge. Not rage. A question. A plea. Kratos said nothing. He lifted the blades. The throne cracked. The Astronomicon flickered, then died. Across the galaxy, ships were lost, worlds went blind, psychers screamed as their minds snapped. Darkness fell. The emperor raised his hand, light blazing, a storm of power that could have burned gods. I saw a galaxy shatter in his palm, Constellations fall like sparks. But Kratos did not falter. He walked into that storm, burning, his flesh peeling, his bones glowing, and still he walked. Chains struck. Blades sang. And the Emperor, the dream of mankind, the last pillar of hope, fell. Do you understand? The Emperor fell. Not with a scream. Not with a roar. With silence. And in that silence, everything ended. The throne dissolved into dust. The palace crumbled into ash. Terra split like rotten fruit, magma boiling from its heart, oceans steaming away into void. Billions died in a single breath, their souls snuffed like candles. The warp itself faltered. Demons shrieked and unraveled. Chaos trembled and fell into shadow. Stars dimmed, constellations broke apart, black holes opened like wounds. And still Kratos stood. The galaxy bled around him. The bones of gods cracked under his boots. The silence was infinite, suffocating, absolute. And I was there. Or I dreamed I was. Or perhaps I am still there, still kneeling, still trembling, still whispering these words to you in the shadow of chains that never end. Do you want to know what he did when it was over? He did not laugh. He did not roar. He did not claim the throne. He turned. He walked away, dragging the chains across the bones of a murdered universe. That was the last sound I heard. That is the only sound I still hear. And when he was finished, there was nothing left to worship, nothing left to fear, only the echo of his chains, dragging across the hollow bones of a murdered universe.